Hello friends, welcome to my channel SushantChessWise. Today we are at a new topic and we are going to discuss about some important features of Rook Endgames. And this example especially is one which I generally use for students of various levels, generally rated players around 15 to 1800 level. And this will help us understand the practical property of a Rook C settled on the 7th rank here. First, let us go into the fine details of the position. It's black to play. White's last move was the bishop coming to e3 and it challenges this bishop. So let us get some calculation done and see what's happening. Firstly, you see we can't take the b2 pawn. See, after bb2 or rook b2 here, rook takes b2, bb2, ba7. The position is very marginally better for black. After bb2 also you can see just bishop takes a7 and nothing much is going on. So black decided to trade the bishops. This is our basic point. And why he decided to trade the bishop? Because after f takes e, you will now see this monster of a rook which is stopping the enemy king from coming out. This is called absolute control of 7th rank. When the king is unable to hide behind the pawns and come out. Right? So rook has permanently blocked the white king. On the other hand, you see the white rook is also struggling for some time till the pawns are on b2 and a2. So this gives black ample of time to use his other resources. We will see what. Firstly, many people ask me what is the power of a rook on the 7th rank. See, as you can see in this case, it stops the enemy king from coming out. So it's like literally a piece down position for white. The black king is free to do whatever it wants, subject to we can use the king properly. Secondly, whenever the rook wants, it can assume a position behind the passed pawn, which is a great thing. Even the queenside pawns, when they will move, whenever black wants, he can come behind those pawns. And at the moment, it is also blocking the enemy rook, which cannot leave his own pawns on the 7th rank. So it eyes the pawns on the 7th rank, it blocks the king, and finally it's set to come behind the passed pawns. So these are the three major characteristics of a rook on the 7th rank. Here, black realizes that he can bring his king up to e5, which is what many players do against me when I do this as a practice session. So kg7 they play instantly, and after a3, white wants to play b3, and after b3, you will free this rook from the d5. So many people, without thinking much, they just play the move king f6. Now what happens here is after king f6, although the move is not bad, but the plan can go wrong. b3, and if black here hurriedly plays the move ke5 without any plan, then we see that these three squares are blocked by the white pawns. So some plan has to be there. See, there are two kinds of players. One who think, okay, position is plus, I will play till there and then let's see what to do. Often that is a viable idea, but every time it doesn't work. And there are players who cannot think of playing the move unless they have a clear-cut plan. So one has to be flexible, at the same time one has to have some concrete idea. Here the black player had that. See, if king e5 is played here, white just gets the chance to get in rook d1. Timely we can say. And now see, rook c3 or rook e2, both will mess up the position after say rook d7, rook e3, rook f7. Here rook f7 and b7, both are interesting. Rook b7, rook f3, rook a7, and see after rook b3, rook f7, nothing much is gained. Even if white would have lost the a pawn for free, this position with two pawns versus one is usually drawn. Here anyway, rook a3, rook f7 is just equal. So the hasty king e5 gave white the required counterplay. Here what black thought, he will force these pawns on e3 and f3 to move and then use the holes created by those pawns. But very interestingly, black plays the move h5. Great move here. Black wants what? He wants to use h4, h3 and rook d2 check. And after king f1, maybe he wants to come behind these pawns and win them one by one. So white realized this and he played the move h3. I think the move h4 is even worse because the h4 pawn will become an easier target. So after h3, black went rook e2. By rook e2, first forcing one of the pawn to move e4 force, and now comes the king f6. The plan is clear. King is going to enter through the king side. And see, after b3, let's say king f1, then nothing much. Either we can do rook h2, kg1. Some people want rook h3 at any cost, but see here it's not that great. kg2, rook h4. The rook can get somewhat stuck here. There is f4 although, but still the rook is now not very active. So just come back rook c2 and then wait and get the same position like in the game. So b3, moving the pawn from b2. Now kg5. Great move. The king eyes h4 and the f4 square, ultimately penetrating from g3. Rest is not very difficult, but very important phase. Rook c1, king f4 attacking f3, rook c7. White is looking for play at all cost. Now kg3. Good move. If king f3, then white gets some play here. Rook f7 check, king g3, and see king f1. This can make the task a bit difficult. See, after rook e4, rook b7, king h3, black is somewhat better still, but it's not very clear. See, black's pawns are a bit advanced here, right? He will play g5, g4. Position is similar to the game. Black plays kg3, much better move. Now no time for rook f7 and all, right? Because of re1 mate. So this forces king f1 and now comes rf2 check. Black will first safeguard the f7 pawn with rook f3. Let's say king g1, then rook f3, rook b7, f6. We can save the pawn, rook a7, rook b3. So this position is like the game, but with the extra pawn on the f6 square for black. So king f1, then see just king h3. So ke1, and now rook f3, rook b7, king h3, rook a7, rook b3, rook f7. Position is see very similar to the previous line, but now see g5. Black's pawns are ready to advance. White's pawns are see here broken. No b3, a3 pawns. So at any moment, black can play either rook e3 and collect e4, or he can come behind the pawn with rook a3. White went rook f5. Maybe a slight mistake here. Black goes with the good move kg4. This seemingly pushed the black king behind. So now rook f8. When he suggests the move a4, a4 will be same like the game. So rook f8, h4, a4, h3 or kg3 will transpose. Black played kg3 first, a5, h3. Otherwise here black would have played kg3. a6. See, the a pawn is not going anywhere. Whenever black wants, he can do rook a2. So h2, force rook h8, and now black has two ways to win. Many actually. Rook a3 is one simplest, and other what he played in the game. Rook b1 check, ke2 h1, rook h1, rook h1. It's game over. After any a7 or kd3, rook a1, black won the game. White chose to resign just after h1 queen. So we saw how to use the rook on 7th rank. Many people know the theory. The rook on 7th rank is powerful and all that. But knowing these kind of examples can make our play very easy in the endgame. So that is my purpose. We are going to look at many practical such cases. Definitely let me know how you found this lesson in the comments below. Thanks for your time.